Hi, this is Dave from Frequent Run Speed. Getting back to the history of running shoes and running. So we're in the mid to late 80s now, but I want to talk about what's going on today and then also what was going on then. I got a statement or comment on my latest video about the review of this shoe, and it was debating the midsole foam. And that's where we are right now. Everybody's talking about, is it fresh foam or is it fuel cell or is it P-backs, whatever. Everybody's asking about that. And because people believe that there are foams that provide better cushioning or a better responsiveness or whatever. And that's not much different than what it was in the mid to late 80s and early 90s. It's the same thing. And who's driving that? The brands. The brands are driving that discussion. So let's get into it. Remember, during that time, there were only two types of foam being used: polyurethane and ethyl vinyl acetate, or EVA. And Nike developed the way to compression mold that EVA, which made it so much lighter, softer. You could manage the lightness, softness, you could manage the weight, and you could mold it into whatever shape you wanted it to be. That was critical in building a better running shoe. But after that, and after everybody else, all the other brands invested into that, then what were we left with? Compression molded EVA or polyurethane? So then Nike introduced Air, and they bought it from a third party, and that launched the entire market of, yes, foam is good, but you needed another cushioning system in there that made it better. And so there was Nike Air, and then next up was Asics Gel. And then Brooks developed Hydroflow, and Saucony developed Grid, and Adidas had developed Adiprene Plus and Adiprene. It was a crazy time, and people asked for shoes based on the technology. The running joke when I started selling running shoes, working on the floor of a retail store, the running joke is we would call another store in the area, another one of our stores in the area, ask the person on the other end of the phone, do you carry Nike Air? And of course their answer would be, yes, we do. What model are you looking for? And our reply was always the red one, because that's what we were getting from customers. Customers didn't know the model name of their shoe. They only knew that it had Nike Air in it. And so they would come in asking for Nike Air. Well, which one? Well, I know I wear the red one. And it was the biggest joke. So we would call and joke around. We'd even call other retailers and like Foot Locker and ask for the same thing, just to have fun. So runners started to believe that those were the difference makers, that if you had air in the heel and possibly in the forefoot, that was even better, or gel in the heel. The next question is, does it have it in the forefoot? Runners started to believe that those were the difference makers. And that was all driven by the brands. There's no doubt the brands were driving the market on innovation or technology of Air and Gel and Grid and Hydroflow. There were other advances as well. The foams, actually it was the rubber that was used on the outer sole was really heavy, and so the weight of running shoes was going up. The brands needed to find a way to save weight, and so some smart engineers figured out, well, if we cut the middle of the shoe out, cut the foam and the rubber out and replace it with a TPU bridge, we can shed weight and maintain functional stiffness. And so that's what they did. Every brand did it. Adidas had the torsion system. Asics, the brand name of it became Trustic. Everybody had it. There was a big cutout in the midsole and replaced by plastic, made it lighter. While all this was going on, running shoes became a business. Everybody was wearing running shoes. They were the most comfortable shoes you could put on your foot, and so everybody was wearing them. They were wearing them to school, they were wearing them on the weekends, they were wearing them with jeans. In fact, that was a big determining factor. How did the shoe look with a pair of jeans? So running shoes became a huge business of selling to the general public. The brands early started focusing running shoes for runners and then running shoes for everyone else. And the running shoes for runners, they spent some money developing it. They spent some brain power on function, and then they kept that shoe in line in the market for 18 to 24 months. So they only updated a shoe every 18 to 24 months. But when it was a running shoe for the general public, Nike was the best at that. They started introducing a new shoe every 12 months because that's really what the retailers were demanding. They needed freshness every 12 months. So like I said, we're no different today than we were back in the late 80s, early 90s. In the late 80s and early 90s, we wanted air or we wanted gel. And we were concerned with weight. Today, we're concerned with weight. And you don't know how many times when I volunteered at running stores, someone will come in and say, "Hey, do you carry New Balance Fresh Foam?" And we do the entire process of finding the right shoe for the person. And if it's not Fresh Foam, they freak out. Well, it's not Fresh Foam, it must not be any good. And that's happening, accelerating now because we have P-backs, which by the way is a chemical property foam developed by a third party that now all the brands are using and putting their own name on it. And the same thing is with nitrogen infused EVA. It's got a brand, it's got a name to it, whatever Brooks calls it or whatever New Balance calls it or whatever everybody else calls it, but it's a third party chemistry project that the brands are buying into. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't be asking for specific foam. I'm just saying you're falling into some marketing as well, because it's critical that you buy into Boost or Fresh Foam or Fuel Cell or React Foam, because if you're not buying into that, it's just a running shoe with a midsole, and it's either comfortable or it's not. And you put it on, and if it's not comfortable, you don't buy it. But if it's that one foam that you heard about that everybody's running in, there's a chance you might buy it whether it's comfortable or not. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. It's not, these brands are not altruistic. They're not sitting there thinking, whoa, we only make shoes for runners and we only make the best running shoes for runners. No way. Yes, they spend a lot of time and a lot of money building the better running shoe. And again, that's where Nike was with Kipchoge. They wanted to build the fastest possible shoe for the best marathoner we've ever seen. But they also want to sell a whole bunch of shoes. And so they are going to be a marketing engine to sell a lot of shoes to a lot of people, because quite frankly, they have investors that need to see growth and need to see profits, and that's business. So again, that all started in the 80s. It all started back then where these companies weren't private or publicly traded. It all started then when they were putting air and gel and everything else in the shoes. We're just in a different stage with different foams, but the concept is still the same. Get you to ask for a shoe based on the technology or the cushioning name in the shoe. Because if you do that, and if you're adamant that this foam is something that I said it's not, or different than from what I said, that means you've fallen into the marketing of it's more than just the brand. It's the brand and the name of foam on the shoe. Because that's when they've got you. If they've got you for two things, if they've got you for the brand and for the name of the foam, they've got you. Thanks a lot for watching. Again, when you're out there running, wave to someone, smile at them, acknowledge their presence out there running. It will go a huge, long way for you and for them.